Welcome back to the show. I'm really glad that you're tuning in because today we have yet another exciting and a very interesting episode. Today we're going to look at a topic that is very important in modern history. We're going to see exactly what happens when capitalism faces off with communism. Today we're talking about the Berlin Wall. If you're new here, I'm Cosden. This is Vlogs of Knowledge and it's absolutely awesome every single week. If you're not subscribed, I really think that you should be because you are missing out. We have a brand new episode about history every single week, and like I said, it's absolutely awesome. So make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the notification bell, join Team Knowledge, and be notified whenever I release a new video. And with that being said, well, let's get to it. Today we're talking about the Berlin Wall, the infamous wall that was there to separate West Berlin from East Berlin. It was the cause of many broken families, many escape attempts, and of course many deaths. We're going to talk about the wall itself, when it was built, why it was built, how long it lasted, why and when it was taken down, and of course the many escape attempts that people tried to do to get over the wall. But as always, before we continue, let's put all this in historical context and get some background. In 1945, we had the end of World War II. Germany lost and the Allies won. And the Allies in this case, for the purposes of our story, are the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the Soviet Union. As part of a treaty signed right after the war, the territory in Germany was to be split into four, each part going to one member of these Allied forces. After the treaty was signed, the western part of Germany went to the United States, to France, and to the United Kingdom, and the eastern part of Germany went to Russia. Now this seems like a great idea, except there's one potential problem. 3 of these countries support capitalism, and 1 country supports communism, and we know from experience that this isn't going to end well. Not only was the territory of Germany split, but they also wanted to split the capital, Berlin, in a similar fashion. So once again, they split it into 4. The eastern part went to the Soviet Union, and the western part went to the Allied forces. As the years went by, we started to see big differences in the way that East Berlin and West Berlin was being ran. You also had these differences in East and West Germany. For example, the western part was usually with a higher standard of living, more freedoms, while the eastern part was kind of lagging behind. And this was because the Soviet Union saw their part of Germany, Eastern Germany, as spoils of war, treasure that was supposed to be looted and brought back to Russia. So they took like all of the good things from Eastern Germany and left the people there with nothing, with only the scraps of what Russia didn't want to bring back home. As you can imagine, the quality of life in the East started to degrade compared to the West, and as a result, you had a lot of people that went from East to West in hopes of better freedom, better standard of living, and a better life. For example, in the 1950s, you literally had millions of people crossing over from East Germany into West Germany in hopes of a better life. Like, the differences were so bad that people were willing to leave everything behind and travel all the way to Western Germany just to get a better life. Now, this was a big problem for the Soviet Union because they were losing a lot of their skilled workers. All of their doctors, their lawyers, their scientists, their people of importance were all leaving and going to the West because they would get paid more, they had more freedoms, and a better life. And when you have a situation like that where you're a country and your skilled workers are leaving in hopes of finding better lives elsewhere, that kind of poses a problem and you need to do something about it. You need to find a way to prevent these people from crossing over. You need to give them some sort of incentive for them to stay there and build their lives and work for your country and not go and work for somebody else. Now, of course, something was going to happen. After a few years, in 1961, people started to hear rumors that something was going to happen. The Soviet Russians were going to do something to prevent people from crossing over the border. However, nobody expected that something to happen so quickly, so suddenly, so without warning. And most importantly, nobody expected a wall to be built. Literally overnight, on August 13, 1961, you had trucks full of soldiers. They came with barbed wire and they made a fence that prevented people from going from East Germany to West Germany. Now, it happened so fast that it was said that whatever side you woke up that morning on August 13 was the side that you were going to be stuck on for years to come. Before that day, in Berlin, people were allowed to cross from east to west without a problem. You could go get groceries, you could go see a friend, you could go to work on the other side. It was not a problem. But after that day, everything changed. The only way that you were going to cross the border was if you somehow found a way to jump across the border, or if you had very special permissions. But even then, those, they weren't that common. For the next 28 years, West Berlin was to be secluded, as they say, and blocked off from the rest of Germany. The official argument was that they didn't want the ideas of capitalism to contaminate the perfect regime of communism, because in their eyes, communism was perfect and capitalism was the enemy. Over the years, the wall was expanded upon and fortified 4 times, each time adding a new layer of protection to prevent people from crossing over. Because yes, you had a ton of people that were trying to cross over the wall. Because if you're going to build a wall that's designed to keep people out, you're obviously going to have people that are going to try to get in, right? You build a wall, people are going to jump over it. You put people in one place, they're going to want to get out. You had people trying all sorts of things to escape the wall, to get past the wall. People dug holes, they went through the sewers, and some people even tried to jump from buildings that were across the wall in hopes of getting across the border. As the escape attempts kept on getting smarter and smarter, the wall kept on getting more fortified. By the 1980s, it was made of concrete, it was almost 12 feet tall, you had soldiers patrolling with vicious dogs, and they had clearance to shoot you if you were trying to escape. Let's just say that if you wanted to try to escape, you had to be super clever about it. You have to be super smart about it. For example, you might want to build your own air balloon, which people did, or you might want to find a weak spot in the wall, get a car, drive at high speeds, break down the wall, and run before the soldiers come and get you. That's what people did too. Like, you had to be really smart. No matter what precautions the communists took, no matter what fortifications they made to the wall, no matter how many soldiers they put to patrol, people still went through. Now, don't get me wrong, the wall was successful. It was successful in preventing the millions of people from going from East Germany to West Germany, but still, no wall is going to be perfect. You're still going to have some people that are going to get across, no matter how hard you try. People wanted to cross the wall because they wanted to escape the communist regime. The communist regime was not good. Life was not good in East Berlin. And if they went to West Berlin, they could potentially be flown to Western Germany, where they had a higher standard of life and more freedom. Because Berlin, although the city itself was split into four, and although you had a western part that was capitalism, Berlin itself was in communism territory. It was in the territory of the Soviet Union when they originally split Germany into four. So to get to Western Germany, well, that was going to be a little harder. West Berlin was seen as some sort of island in a sea of communism territory. The only way to get to Western Germany, to get to more freedom, to a higher standard of life, was to go to West Berlin. The wall stood for 28 years. Now, 28 years, that's a very long time. It gained international recognition as a symbol of the war between capitalism and communism. It symbolized the physical difference between how people thought that Germany should be ruled. It was huge, it was long, and it looked like it was there to stay. But like all things, like I always say on this show, nothing lasts forever. The Berlin Wall was no exception, and eventually it had to come down. I mean, it did last for 28 years. That's a very long time. So you can imagine that when it eventually came down, the people were very happy about it. So how did the Berlin Wall eventually go down? Well, as the years went by, communism was starting to lose the battle against capitalism. It seemed like it was losing its influence in large parts of Europe. The leader of the time didn't want this reality to sink into the people living in East Berlin. He wanted them to still believe that communism was strong, communism was winning the battle against capitalism, and that everything was like it should be. He didn't want them to realize that communism was actually losing, so he started to force this idea onto people on East Berlin. However, that didn't last too long. His plan kind of failed and he was eventually forced to leave office and to be replaced by somebody else. And that other person, well, he thought that people in East Berlin shouldn't be stuck in East Berlin. They should have the freedom to leave and to go to West Berlin if they wanted to. So he told the military, you know what, just let people go. If they want to go to West Berlin, just let them go. Let's put an end to all of this. With the same speed and efficiency as the wall was built some 20 years ago, overnight, people had the freedom to go to West Berlin. Now at the beginning, people didn't really believe that this was really a thing because, I mean, the wall had been there for almost 30 years. And suddenly overnight you had access to it. So they actually went to the wall and lo and behold, the military was allowing them to go through. The following days, as you can obviously imagine, you had tons of people crossing over the wall. Many of them brought hammers and chisels and they began hammering away at the wall in hopes of destroying it. After a long period of darkness, Berlin was finally starting to see some light. On November 9, 1989, that was the day that this freedom was accepted, and that was the day that people from East Berlin could finally cross into West Berlin. That's a day that a lot of German people still remember to this day. That day, and the Berlin Wall to be more specific, is a very important and crucial part in our modern history. It's important to know about it, to learn about it, and to be aware. I mean, it happened less than 30 years ago. It's important because for 30 years, because of this war against communism and capitalism, people lost their freedom. I mean, for 30 years, you could not cross the border in your own city. Just think about it. One day you go to the groceries to East Berlin, and the other day you're stuck. You can never go to East Berlin again. Like, that's huge. Like, that's very important. So that was a brief history lesson on the Berlin Wall. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave it a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, join Team Knowledge, and be notified whenever I release a new video. Now, I know I haven't talked about everything regarding the Berlin Wall. It's a huge topic, there's a lot more to say, but I'm actually doing this on purpose because I want you guys to go out and research more on your own. I do these shows to give you guys enough incentive to get you curious and to let you go and research more on your own. And in fact, if you want to do that, if you want to research more on your own, I'm going to head and put some links in the description where you can start. You're welcome to check them out. And now it's time for questions. What do you think about the Berlin Wall? Do you think it was necessary to build such a big wall? And what do you think about this battle between communism and capitalism? Please do leave me a comment. I would love to read and answer them all. And bonus points for you, if you do leave a comment, you might get featured in next week's video as a fan of the week. With that being said, my name has been Cosden. You can follow me on social media. The links will be in the description. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you all next week.